And it was like, oh no, we gotta wait.
Yeah. I want to. Yeah.
Chilling out like, hey, every time I look out, I'm on my lookout. Cause niggas tripping, no, I ain't hoping, no sense in voting for politicians. All of that hating, don't be creating. Food in my kitchen, all of that talking without no walking. Can't help my vision when I step out and put my neck out. They try to play me so I don't go out without my blowout. Brought that 380, all of my brothers pray for their mothers. Cause I can't tame them, got no answer. Can't kill their cancer, how can you blame them? I was hoping I could be open with all my feelings, but not fuck it. I take that bucket without no ceilings. I've been praying, but I ain't saying that I ain't stressing. I ain't moping, cause I'm just hoping I learned my lesson. I need G's for all my G's, so could you please try? Off your knees and on your P's, don't let your dreams die. I plant my seed to fill your need, to get your brain food. If you like me, the shit you see, it'll give you strange moods. So I'm just praying for answers. I know they hiding the truth from us. Pray for protection. I know they plotting on newcomers. Right through the city, my reefer reeking, my speaker speaking. My conscience stressing, but I be knowing that he be tweaking. Say I was thinking this weekend we get to linking up. Roll some of that good in the wood and we fought the linking up. She understanding my language, I think she speaking well. She ease the pain on my brain, it's causing my people hell. And since you looking, I'm looking, maybe we find a way to put your heart to the surface and put your mind away. They dropped us here on a dying planet without permission. No pots of pissing and trying to offer you propositions. What about my struggle be funny? They call it entertaining. Niggas got them snakes and they huddle, watch who you entertaining. All about my freedom, so I'ma need them to come correct it. Thinking I'm your enemy, all your energy misdirected.
Hey, bro.
I shed a tip for my people, I struggle to be connected. I got that call from my cousin, I'm glad we reconnected. Why they always hating on moves we making and trying to slow them? Wish I could give you that reason, but I don't even know.
Welcome in, and thank you for joining us for another episode of SODFS, brought to you by Sons of Dynasty and proud members of True North Fantasy Football. Follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Sons and subscribe to the TNFF Network on YouTube so that you never miss a show. I am Dan. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Brown NFL. And here to my left is special guest Bo. You can find him at Bo_Mick Big Time. We are here live on a Saturday night. Into the weekend, we are in the conference championship round of the NFL playoffs. Bo, what is going on with you, my man? I really do appreciate you joining us on short notice here and being really a big-time name guest here for SODFS here on a Saturday night.
You guys got to step up that game then, because I'm not that big of a name. Come on, guys. But I have a lot of fun playing DFS against y'all. It's been my pleasure to enjoy pretty much every episode of your show here. I'm thrilled to be with you here, Dan, because we football on the horizon. And for all you people out there that are watching, make sure if you're building lineups, switch to Sativa.
Oh, Sativa 100%. And we have
just make that switch, it'll make all the difference for you.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, as a 9 to 5 guy during the day, I can attest to that. It makes all the difference. But let's talk about a couple of these quality games that we do have here tonight, Bo. You know, we got the Bengals at the Chiefs, a matchup that we saw just a few weeks ago, and it was absolute fireworks. And I think many around Twitter are expecting the same thing. This is going to be one of the more popular games for this weekend's 2-game slate. Such a small slate. We know that these are really the two more preferred offensive firepower, I think, weapons as far as the passing game goes, really. And I think it is going to be one that you really need to really pick and choose which game you want to focus on throughout a build, and late swap becomes super important in these 2-game slates. Getting that information, once the first game has started, really allows you to set yourself apart from the field with the second game there. But those become super important, and building each lineup is very important to think about that and where you're going to be going, because you got the afternoon game with the 49ers and the Rams, 3:00 p.m. Eastern and 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Bo, just right off the rip here, give me your initial thoughts. If you want to go ahead and call me, who's going to take the game and if we're going to hit the over and under. That first game, 54.5, I believe, is what I saw it at last. That's a point total that a lot of us in the DFS world, really start foaming at the mouth when we see. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
And deservedly so, Dan. It's the type of game where, fireworks last time. Week 17 was 3 weeks ago, and we got a 34-31 win in Cincinnati by the Bengals. We saw the full, complete thermonuclear explosion from Jamar Chase in that game. And alongside that, Chase did have a 200-yard game and 3 touchdowns there. But it was also Joe Burrow, 440 yards and 4 touchdowns against the same secondary that's not even as healthy as it was in week 17 3 weeks ago. So yeah, you might want to have some pieces in this game at the very least. The part about getting different, it's true, but it's also less important this week because with 2 games, everybody's going to have a lot of duplicates and the ownership is going to be through the roof on certain players. Doesn't mean you don't want to play them. It means that you want to get different somewhere else, maybe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's part of the fun. Each and every week it's a puzzle, and this is just a concentrated puzzle. Instead of having that wide variety of options, you have really a couple of core builds based off of, in my opinion, really 2 quarterbacks that are awesome, 3 quarterbacks that are all serviceable this week, and a 4th quarterback that is really just a GPP dart.
He's so handsome.
Because he is handsome, but he is going to be far and away the lowest owned quarterback across any format on DFS platforms. And so that's really the only thing that Jimmy G has going for him is the potential edge that you get if for whatever reason Jimmy G can string together a couple of passes, if they can get Ayuk involved, if we see a monster yak game from George Kittle and not so much Deebo Samuel taking handoffs out of the backfield, because that's what it's going to take. But that is an edge to potentially explore in these large field GPP builds when you're going to see close to 70% of the field probably be rostering either Burrow or Mahomes.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on, except Jimmy G's not even as good as you described. He has no chance of having a 20-point game. He only had 3 of those during the entire season, and they weren't against this caliber of a defense. The Rams, they made Jimmy G look pretty average at best both games here. Even the game where they blew them out 34-10, Jimmy G had nothing to do. That was all defense and special teams, which is kind of the calling card for San Francisco. For me, I think it's just going to be, do I really want to escape a perfect lineup just because I think it might be too popular? I'm telling myself over and over again, don't be afraid to leave salary on the table because your perfect build might be $800,000 shy of the salary cap, and it needs to be what you said, a really keyword core. This is the type of slate where you want a solid, rock solid, like Christian Bale's abs of core players, 2 or 3 guys that you lock in because you love that play so much, and then you just kind of shotgun fire the rest of them. And you fill out the rest of your lineups with different variations off of those core guys.
Yeah, I feel like really this week is really key of essentially starting your build with which one of these quarterbacks do you want to start your build with, and basically taking it from there. I build one for each and every quarterback that this slate has to offer at this point. And to be honest, I'm probably going to have at least 2 or 3 variations of each of those quarterbacks. So, there's plenty to go around here, but it is going to be a matter of, how your build, initially coming into this, we think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stacks, those are going to be popular. Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill stacks. Travis Kelsey stacks. With pricing this week, it's really not difficult to build these what feel like monster stack lineups. If you're game stacking, I mean, you can get Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelsey with Jamar Chase in there, and it feels like cheating, but the pricing really does allow you to do that. And part of that is to, some of the running backs that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But the pricing is just, it has me wanting to build 1,000 lineups this week just because I feel like I'm looking at my lineup at the end there and I'm like, this thing is about to smash, but I'm building variations off of it that now I feel like it's all fool's gold. But what are your thoughts on this slate?
Well, you'll be happy to know and probably a little disappointed at the same time that you are just another sucker like me, where the DraftKings algorithm prices people into extravagant point totals on Sunday. And so the big point totals get more clicks, they get more eyeballs, and the whole machine keeps running. So DraftKings, shout out on just being clever as a fox and pricing everybody perfectly to where your champions this weekend are probably going to be duplicates. If we're being honest, it's going to take a wild and crazy Sunday for duplicates to not exist. Like last week, just a small percentage of people had Gabriel Davis in that game. So those people won everything. And the rest of the people were just like, well, I wish I had taken a flyer on Gabriel Davis. But this weekend, if it's any different, then you're going to have a lot of duplicate lineups, but it's fine because a win's a win. Like if we're being honest, you see a first place next to your name. And that's all the feeling I need.
Let me ask you, Bo, if you had to push your chips on one guy on this slate that could be this week's Gabe Davis, who would it be? And it doesn't have to be a low price guy, but maybe even a superstar. Who would you think is most likely to explode this week? That guy that you're gonna say, damn, if you don't have him, you were pretty much cooked.
I mean, part of me just thinks it's gonna be Jamar Chase again, because we just saw it. Where Spagnuolo likes to bring heat, and when he brings heat, it's like they're doubling down. They got 8 king, and they're doubling down so they can get a nice hand here. So I just think that Jamar Chase is the weapon that they prefer to use, and if they double Chase, then T. Higgins is going to be a big problem because they can't cover all three of these great receivers one-on-one when they bring the heat, because Joe Burrow's electric when he's facing pressure. He's just almost better. And that's what the Chiefs have to deal with in this game, is trying to slow down all three of those wide receivers enough to win the game. And that's kind of which direction I'm leaning, is towards those receivers, especially with Chase.
Yeah, I like that call. I'm also in on Chase this week, but more than anything, I'm in on Joe Burrow coming in at 6,600. He's coming off of 2 sub-20 DK point games and went under 20 DK point 7 times during the regular season, but he did go over 30 DK points 3 times. The last time, though, he did face the Chiefs, as Bo and I mentioned. He went 30 for 39, 446 yards, and 4 touchdowns, which was good enough for 37.84 DK points. I mean, so obviously we know Burrow has all the upside that you could ask for on this slate, and he's cheaper than Mahomes. So that's kind of what draws me to Burrow. And as I mentioned, really with this price point, you can build the ultimate Bengals stack and even have plenty of bring back power just by finding 1 or 2 values. If you go Burrow with Uzoma, even that right there just allows you to, pack Jamar Chase, potentially even T. Higgins and Tyreek Hill in if you're slamming a Cam Akers and maybe a Jerick McKinnon there in the running back.
I've been doing a lot of that. Where Joe Burrow, I think in the last game where they played 3 weeks ago, Burrow outscored Mahomes pretty easily because he had just an insane stat line. And even if we say this game is closer or just as close, but closer in stats wise, and we say they break even, you're still getting a better value and less ownership, less popularity for Joe Burrow than Mahomes, even at a higher price. Everybody's all over Mahomes for good reason, but Joe Burrow is you're not going to get much leverage on a slate this small. But that's one way to do it, is to go with probably the second or third most popular quarterback with the same upside.
Well, talking about second or third quarterback, let's take a minute to mention Matthew Stafford. He's coming in at 6,300 this week. How are your, what's your temperature gauge on Stafford this week? I think he is probably going to be third as far as my projected ownership models are looking at this time. The price tag is there, but all of these guys are vaguely in the same area, only $300 cheaper than Joe Burrow with the high point total that many people are going to be chasing. Stafford, while the efficiency's been there, we've seen some interceptions, and San Fran defense has been stout in one way or another. So where are you on Stafford? Obviously, we love Kupp. Do we love Stafford?
Yeah, we do. Stafford's one of my favorite. With him and Burrow, 1A and 1B for me. It's like y'all have some Mahomes because obviously you don't want to miss out when he goes and does his thing. And I probably won't have any Jimmy Garoppolo, to be honest. I think he's a pile of trash and doesn't deserve to be here. And his odds of putting up the kind of performance that makes up for the difference that you have to go down from Stafford is like the astronomical likelihood is that Stafford's going to have. I think he has the most upside of any quarterback on the slate, because if the Rams beat the 49ers, it's going to have to be from a big game from Stafford and his receivers. So, and I do think that that's going to happen. I have the Rams winning big this week, so I have to tell that story. I have to say, okay, if they do win big, how's it going to happen? Like, you're sitting there with your grandpappy, and he's telling you about his big DFS win in the winter of 22. He's going to be telling you. I mean, that's you. You're the one. You're the grandpappy. You're the grandpappy, and you're telling the story. Who was it? And I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be Stafford, Kupp, and one or two other receivers that get you there this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. It's really that stack. Are you going Stafford and Kupp? Are you going Burrow and Chase? These are kind of the options that you have to think about. A Burrow Chase combo is actually $1,800 less than a Stafford Cooper Kupp combo. So something to think about, when it comes to a saving. You might say, yes, Kupp you feel a lot better about as far as his safety net of a floor goes, but you are paying $1,800 more for that floor when we do think that both of these guys realistically have a similar ceiling projection. So a chance there really to save a little bit of money by while you have the Matt Stafford price tag being the quarterback 3 here, it almost feels like it's luring us into these Rams stacks. But I think I'm gonna stick to my guns here with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and like I mentioned, I think that is going to be one of the more popular Cincinnati stacking foundations, if you will. So I'm gonna go ahead and build a couple of Burrow and just no Jamar Chase, because I think that is a way that you're going to see a ton of Burrow Chase stacks, Burrow Chase. So what you're not going to see a ton of is Burrow stacks with no Chase. And yes, is the risk there, but yes, Jamar Chase is going to be coming in at 40+% potentially on this slate, and is a guy that, yes, we all believe in his upside. I love him this week. We're going to talk about him a little bit more, but if you're entering these large field GPP tournaments, getting a Burrow stack going on without Jamar Chase, getting a Matthew Stafford without Kupp feels even less sexy.
It feels nasty.
But something that you might have to think about doing in some of these large field GPP on a 2-game slate like this.
Yeah, you really do have to get different. But at the same time, you can't stare a gift horse in the mouth. Just like, hey, this might be the best play, but too many people like it. Too many people like it, so I'm not going to do it. Don't be stubborn for the sake of giving up your upside, because if you're like, oh no, everybody and their mom's going to have Mahomes and Hill. Mahomes and Hill. Yeah.
I think that a lot of people will have Mahomes and Hill. A lot of people will have Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. Because you can do it this week, as I mentioned. But let's talk running backs, Bo. And we'll start with the guy up at the very top, kind of a tier 1 running back on this slate, if you will, and Joe Mixon coming in at 6,800. And we know he's going to get the volume, and he's been active as a passing weapon in this heavyweight matchup, against Kansas City, who has been better versus the run here, but we think that with the game on the line, Mixon is going to get every bit of volume they can handle and potentially the receiving work as well. So PPR here on DK is obviously gives him a ton of upside and a great pivot off of the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stacks. Where are you at on Joe Mixon at 6,800?
So last time I looked, Mixon is picking up quite a bit of popularity even at 68 because the pricing is so favorable. Does he have the same amount of upside as, let's say, Jerick McKinnon? Yeah, he's got more. And you're like, okay, well, if I'm not playing Mixon, who else am I going with? You don't have that many choices on this slate. The running back is pretty thin this week with like 4 teams. One of them that uses a straight up committee. You're gonna be like, oh, okay, who do I pick? You don't know with the Chiefs, so you knock them out. Like I can't use too many lineups with the Chiefs guys because Joe Mixon's sitting there, and I was like, he only takes up one spot, but he's the guy. Like he is the guy. If the Bengals end up winning this thing with defense in the running game, which is a smart thing to do if you're Zach Taylor, hint, hint. Joe Mixon's going to be the reason they do that, and they're able to get past the Chiefs and go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, I love him as a great leverage play off of the Joe Burrow stacks that I think will be plentiful out there. So maybe getting him into even a Pat Mahomes build could be advantageous of sorts. And once again, that's just really attacking that early game, which doesn't leave you a lot of pivot points. But one thing you don't want to back yourself into is like, oh, I got to have my late swap options. I live and die by the late swap. Well, here you are passing up a damn near 55-point total game just so you can have late swap options. So
late swap is just like a second chance drawing on the scratch off tickets. I mean, come on. Like you get scratch off tickets. Oh, I lost. No, but you can enter it in the extra drawing. It's like the late swap doesn't actually help people. I'm not a late swap believer. I'd never ever use it, even though I have a chance every week of doing a late swap. When it comes down to it, I like my original picks better. I would hold out a pick for something that is I probably should have seen in my forecast already.
And typically I'm the same, I'm lucky enough to get my lineups locked in before lock, and then the kids are tugging and pulling on me throughout the day. So the chances of me being able to check ownership and make adjustments to my multitude of lines that I happen to build in my spare time over the previous course of the week, it is unlikely. So like you, many a times I don't take as much advantage as I'd like, but ultimately it just comes down to if I've had some guys that were a little bit chalkier plays, 18, 20% rostered in the tournament, and they end up drawing kind of dead. And I know that the rest of my build, if I don't get different with it, I'm dead anyway. That is a situation where I'll use that late swap. Maybe like you mentioned, leave $1,000 on the table because I end up throwing in a Jawan Jennings over a OBJ and end up with a 5% ownership versus the 17 that we would have seen from OBJ.
Yeah, and it's just you got to use all the tools, but at the right time.
Because if OBJ hits, I'm dead anyway. Right. So I that's the only time that I have even a chance at that point.
And that's the thing is, if I'm eating chalk, it's probably going to be at the running back over wide receiver, simply because of the limitations of the position at this small of a slate. I almost don't care that Mixon is trending towards 61% rostership. That doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't knock me over because he's also showing up in 56.6% of the optimal lineups according to Run the Sims. That's crazy because you're like, oh, that's crazy ownership or rostership, and he's almost same percentage as optimal, and that's perfect. Like I don't care if it's super chalk, if it's really likely to hit. Like Joe Mixon is very likely to be in an optimal lineup because he's the only real alpha back on this slate, and 6,800 is not that much. We've been paying 8 and 9 for certain running backs all season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's not a bad price for Joe Mixon and what we've seen on that offense. But one of my favorite plays on as far as the running backs go on this slate is Cam Akers, who DK just didn't want to give any respect out of what we've seen out of him the last couple of weeks because they've only got him priced at 5,000 here. And so Cam Akers is making his way into a multitude of my lineups. We've seen him really take over this backfield since returning to action. It did take him a few games to get up to speed, but he received 81% of the snaps last week and garnered every single red zone look amongst the running backs, got 3 targets in the passing game, and he is a true value, if you will, on this slate with this offense and the workload that we're expecting to see from him. I think Sean McVay has essentially handed him the reins to this backfield, and at 5,000, I'm going to take it. San Fran, yes, rough draw against defense, but Cam Akers has shown us that he's definitely viable in the passing game, and I think that's what it's going to take. So give me Cam Akers at 5,000. Bo, temp check for you.
I'm right along with you because I'm looking at Run the Sims. I mean, you're co-partners of ours. So yeah, when I hop on Chalk Block, I'll be spouting Run the Sims percentages and projections as well. I'm looking at 2 running backs on the slate who are pulling a lot of popularity, a lot of chalk, but they're optimal in over half of the lineups that are being simulated. So you have 2 guys that are pretty clear picks that I might want to be 80 to 100% on. Even if they're 60% rostered, I'm still ahead because I'm overweight, because they're very much more likely. If I'm looking at one stat this week, it's boom rate. I want to know that this player is more likely to get me where I want to go and have the upside to really score points. So yeah, I'm right with you with Mixon, Akers. I'm just once I get those 2 guys in my lineup, I don't have to worry about anything. I just say, okay, I can pick 2 or 3 of these stud wide receivers or throw in a Kelsey or Kittle and just call it good because this lineup is set. It's exactly what I want to see. It's exactly how I picture these games transpiring. So what if I have $600 left? These are the guys I want.
Yeah, that really feels like my core of running backs that I feel good about this week. And outside of that, you have really the Kansas City running back situation with Jerick McKinnon, 5,100, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 5,300. If you had to guess, which one would you rather have a piece of, Jerick McKinnon this week or Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Darrell Williams. Because we don't know that he's out. He's still limping around with a turf toe, which I'm sure is the worst thing you can have for a running back in the playoffs. Is I'm already nicked up from everything else, and now I got turf toe, so I can't plant or cut off of that one foot because it sucks. When you try rupturing a tendon in your big toe, it's not fun.
Yeah, I have heard whispers that he is going to be potentially available. I don't really see him being much of a factor either way. I think Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, given the juice that we saw out of him last week, are more than capable for this backfield. But it's a messy situation at best, which gets us back to the core that we really like, and that's Akers and Joe Mixon. Elijah Mitchell, love him, love what he's been able to do for San Fran. Unfortunately, he's just not getting the receiving work that these other guys are seeing. And here on DK, PPR, it's just it's a better situation for these other guys. But Mitchell could be a guy to look at. I am curious, Bo, if you still have Run the Sims pulled up there, what is the ownership there looking like for those Kansas City running backs between McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I'm guessing it's similar. Maybe McKinnon just a slight nod given the price break.
No, actually, what it's looking like is McKinnon's getting a big lean here with 47% projected ownership, and Edwards-Helaire is only at 19. So Edwards-Helaire is the leverage pick here. If you're saying, hey, I want to get chalky and put in Tyreek, Chase, and Kupp as wide receivers, and you don't have much money for running back, you can get cheap. Get Cam Akers at 5,000. Who cares? That's a great price. I'm not going to be like, oh no, he's too cheap.
It's tough to get away from Cam.
Yeah, and him and Edwards-Helaire, who's going to have that combination of running backs? And what that allows you to do at the receiver position, especially if you go with Burrow or Stafford that aren't going to be breaking your bank, you're creating a stack with one of these stud wide receivers, and you have running backs with crazy upside. Like we saw the trend here 2 weeks ago, Edwards-Helaire barely touched the ball. Last week, he got 30% of the snaps. this week, if it's 50-50, Edwards-Helaire averaged 10 yards a touch last week. So if we're trending towards 20% more snaps, then he's by far the more explosive option compared to, Jerick McKinnon is great, but he's 29. I think Edwards-Helaire as a 19% flyer is just as dangerous to being an optimal lineup as Jerick McKinnon, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, Clyde looked good this past week too. He looks like he's got the juice back in that step. While he's been much of a disappointment throughout his NFL career, as far as us dynasty degenerates are concerned, he did look good, and that does kind of, as you mentioned, given that ownership edge, I think I do need to have a little bit more Clyde Edwards-Helaire exposure on this given slate.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt because he is so, just unpopular. He's the 5th most popular running back on the slate, and that's out of 4 starters, really. If you consider him or McKinnon the starter, you're saying he's going to be your only leverage running back here with enough upside to make you want to put him on the field.
Well, and I understand the ownership because McKinnon's $200 cheaper, and he is what I would consider the preferred option, just based off of what we've seen. But if it's enough of a difference as far as ownership goes, I definitely love the pivot call there for CEH. Let's move on though into the wide receivers, Bo. We mentioned some of the big guys up top. Who is your favorite of the big guns that you're looking at up at the top to really base off of that quarterback stack that we were talking about with the build? Is it a Cooper Kupp? Is it Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel? Who are you taking here as the wide receiver one? Tyreek Hill also in the mix there. It's really a hard question to ask this week and one to answer, but here I am throwing it at you. Which one you taking as the true wide receiver one this week?
Can it be anybody other than Cooper Kupp? It's just insane what the dude did. It's like, all these times that he's been the highest price on the board, just like this week. How many times has that been a popular option? Plenty of times. He's been the chalkiest guy on the board, especially last 7 weeks of the season. Is Cooper Kupp was super expensive, and Cooper Kupp paid the bills. Cooper Kupp is worth his weight in gold. It doesn't matter what his ownership is going to be because he never once let us down this season. Not even once did he come in as chalk and turned into bad chalk. Why would he start against the 25th best secondary in the NFL, the San Francisco 49ers? Why would we expect Cooper Kupp's first chalk-busting bad performance to be in this game? I just don't see it. I think Cooper Kupp goes nuclear this week. He's going to be the focal point of the offense, and San Francisco doesn't have the personnel. They have the scheme for sure. That's a very well organized scheme on defense with DeMeco Ryans. They don't have the talent to match up with Cooper Kupp because you can't guard him one-on-one, and if you zone him, that's his specialty, is just finding space.
Yeah, well, and I think you nailed it. Cooper Kupp is almost a lock to get that guaranteed production week in and week out, especially in these NFL playoffs where everything is on the line. I think we can definitely guarantee that Cooper Kupp is going to smash in this game. And DK, though, is making you pay up for it at $8,800. He is by far and away the heaviest price wide receiver on this slate. Even Deebo Samuel, Mr. Electric himself, coming in at $7,200 is a decent amount cheaper. Tyreek Hill feels like a value at $7,000, but then lo and behold, that Jamar Chase all the way down at $6,700. So you start thinking about that with Cooper Kupp. Yes, you are paying for that safety net at $8,800, and while you don't want to miss out on that, Jamar Chase at $6,700 with the guy Joe Burrow, who I'm in love with this week as well, it's just tough for me to get away from. But getting multiple of these stud wide receivers, like we mentioned, into a build, I can have Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and a Cooper Kupp in my build this week, and it is possible with a Cam Akers or a Clyde Edwards-Helaire or a CJ Uzomah there at the tight end position, maybe even Blanton there for the Rams, who saw one of 3 tight end red zone opportunities this past week and was able to cash in for a tutty. So those type of maneuvers allow you to pay up and get multiple of these guys, but they're all going to be high owned. So it's just a matter of finding which build that you want to, really centrate your build around and find a way to, bringbacks are super popular. Maybe this is a week where you have 0 bringbacks and you just, focus on attacking a single onslaught game, if you will, and then waiting in the afternoon game, fiddling those ancillary pieces of your build out that way. And don't be afraid to leave money on the table.
Thank you. Preach it. And another thing is, this is a 4-game slate, and onslaught lineups are very, very successful and aggressive. I like hyper aggressive strategy. So I'm going after a showdown slate type mentality where instead of 6 guys, I have 9 guys between 2 games. I'm going to treat it kind of the same way, where I might just go ham on one side, taking all the points and scoring all the points. Kind of like when the Bengals the week before they played the Chiefs and they went completely bonkers. Joe Burrow had his 500-yard game. We had a chance for a 5-man Bengals onslaught to be the optimal lineup that weekend because Mixon got there with 2 touchdowns. Higgins got there. Boyd got there. Jamar Chase was crazy. And Joe Burrow, of course, was the best quarterback on the slate by far. You could have gone 5 wide Bengals that week and been optimal. And that was on a 10-game slate. Just picture that on a 2-game slate. If you have that possible during the regular season on a full slate, just think about how much more likely it is to happen when it's 25% at neutral value. Is that Joe's got a 1 in 4 chance of doing that again with all of his favorite guys alongside him.
Yeah, no, I like that call. Anytime that you start talking about doing some weird ass shit, I'm instantly I'm with you on that. So
eyebrows went up.
I like that call. Straight onslaught, building it out, and then have your ancillary pieces just make absolutely no sense whatsoever, and instantly you've set yourself apart from the field. And that's what we might see this week to really get a little bit different. Bo, we are going to talk a little bit about some tight ends and a little bit about some DSTs, but I'm going to go ahead and transition us towards our lineup build section here, as we have another show coming on, the Point After show, starting here in about another hour from now. So we're going to go ahead and get into that section and start maybe potentially build 1, if not 2 lines here for the people. But before we do that, I do want to take a quick moment to talk about our friends from Surfshark. Surfshark VPN is our hero product, bringing humanitized privacy, security, and access. It is the fastest growing VPN on the market and currently sits at number 3 globally in brand searches. They provide all cell phone, tablet, laptop, and CPU users with unbeatable VPN security for all devices. You might be asking yourself, what is VPN? Well, let me fill you in. A VPN is a virtual private network, is a technology that allows you to set up a secure connection between your device and another one via the public internet. It is like creating a separate secret communication channel nobody can snoop on, and with apps like Surfshark, it is very easy to do. The best reason to use a VPN is simple: security online. You don't want to leave a digital breadcrumb that connects all of your online activities to you. With a VPN, you hide your IP address, like your home address, but for the internet, mask your activities and your internet service provider and more. That's surfshark.com to get a premium VPN at a fraction of the cost. All right, Bo, we are here in our lineup build. Usually customary option is that, I kick it off over to my guy, Nate. We've talked about a bunch of guys here. I mentioned, really starting my build at the quarterback position. For this particular build, there is no wrong build, if you will, but this is a large field GPP tournament here. So for this particular build, how do you want to start us out? Give me a quarterback that you want to build around.
Joe Shiesty.
Okay, I love it. That's my love language. You're talking right there with Joe Burrow.
Oh.
All right. Now, keeping large field in mind, do we want to go from here what options do we want to supply our man Smoking Joe with here? You want to go Chase? It's the chalky stack, obviously.
I can't come on here with a hat on for the most deliciously intense condiment on planet Earth and not bring some spice. So Joe Burrow stacked with Chase and Mixon.
But I love it. The three biggest playmakers that Cincinnati has to offer in all
they're gonna need them. They're
gonna
need them. That's what if I'm picturing the Bengals going into Arrowhead and making the upset, it's gonna be because of those three guys. Those three guys are gonna be the way that the Bengals have a chance in this game.
Okay, so clearly we're attacking Cincinnati here, and the early game here in KC with Cincinnati visiting there. What are we doing as far as bring back options? Is there a stud on the KC side of the ball that we want to bring in? Typically if we need Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, and Ja'Marr Chase to smash, that means fireworks. And if there's fireworks, typically there's got to be explosions on both ends of the field here for both teams. Who's going to be exploding for Kansas City in this particular build?
This is crazy, but it's Byron Pringle. For whatever reason,
Mr. Touchdown Pringle.
This guy, once you pop, the fun don't stop. He's never priced up for his upside, which is his upside is he can outscore Tyreek Hill on occasions. Tyreek Hill doesn't blow up every game. When he does, you notice because it's 50 points. But when Tyreek Hill doesn't go off and Kelsey's just kind of good but not great, it's because Byron Pringle stole a show. He's got so many big performances this season, and getting him down there in the low fours is right where I want him.
All right. Well, I do love that.
There's your differentiator. I mean, you could go chalk from here on out, and nobody's going to have this lineup.
Is there any other piece of that early game that you want to bring to this lineup? I'm obviously already locked in on who our RB2 is going to be, although he is the latter game. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and plug him in, and we can circle back to the rest of the build. But that's Cam Akers coming in for that RB2 slot. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show. Here we are with our running back core for this week, and one that I recommend many of you do lean heavily on in Joe Mixon and Cam Akers. Yes, the ownership is going to be up. We know that courtesy of Run the Sims, proud partners here at SODFS. So make sure you do check them out. But that they are going to be very popular running backs, but for good reason. Joe Mixon, a tier 1 running back, really setting himself apart from the field, and Cam Akers, who's really come on masterfully coming off of this injury. As dynasty owners, we all love to see it. As DFS enthusiasts, it's one more piece of the puzzle, but he's coming in at what we consider to be a true value this week, and we are locking him into the RB2 slot. That's leaving us just over 5,000 per remaining position. Now that we have both of our running backs locked in, is there a DST that you're really feeling this week, Bo?
It's got to be the Rams. I mean, don't overthink it. The Rams will be popular for sure. You got the better defense of the lowest total game. And they also happen to have a guy named Aaron Donald and another guy named Jalen Ramsey and another guy named Von Miller. And they're really good. They're really good. So if you're going to look for, okay, it's a low-hanging fruit, but it pairs up with Cam Akers. Cam Akers has a good, solid 100-yard game with a touchdown or two, and we're getting there with him. The Rams are also going to be happier because a happy running back is a happy defense, and they really do marry well here. You're looking at a DST that is going to be, pretty well owned, but overall, it's for the greater good of your lineup build to put the Rams in there because they also have to face the worst quarterback of all these teams by a wide margin. So if they're able to corral the running game, that's their ticket win. They have to completely sell out to stop the run and then beat Jimmy Garoppolo. That's their pathway to victory, and I think it's going to happen. So that's the story I'm going to tell with Cam Akers and the Rams defense.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. The Cam Akers value really allows you to easily get the Rams into the build, and I find myself doing that regularly with Cam Akers. Now, given this Joe Burrow build, it really kind of limits my secondary option, which would be the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and I'm not opposed to getting exposure to them in non-Joe Burrow builds. Now, this is a week that you might potentially, there's a good chance Joe Burrow could be an optimal quarterback, and you could have Kansas City DST as an optimal defense, just given, the amount of sacks that Joe Burrow we saw this past week. And Kansas City is a very blitz heavy team. We could see just as many sacks potentially. I know last week was record tying or what have you, but expect to see Joe Burrow under fire once again this week. I still like him, obviously, but I'm not afraid of playing the Kansas City defense, even in my Joe Burrow stacks. If it's another way to set me apart from the field, I think it's a route
crazy,
that I'm
man.
willing to take.
Crazy. You crazy.
Crazy.
Who's this guy? This guy's crazy. Like,
no way. No fucking way.
no fucking way. She said there was no way. That's a crazy stack, like going up against your own quarterback. I've done that many times, not often successful, but that was on a main slate, so who knows? Because there's only 4 defenses to choose from. You're absolutely right.
All right, with our DST plugged in, we get to kind of see our true average remaining left at 5,800. Still have a wide receiver, the tight end, and 1 flex play to fill. Where do we head from here, Bo? Is there another one-off potentially from this game? We have Cam Akers, is Deebo Samuel, George Kittle potentially, that boom game that we've been waiting for the last few weeks. Is it due? Which way do you want to go with the rest of this build?
I mean, it goes with our narrative that in order for Joe Burrow to be the optimal quarterback, the Chiefs got to be pushing him, or leading them. And I hope for our sake that Joe Burrow is just balling out like he did the first time these two teams met. And he's taking advantage of an aggressive defense with a banged up secondary because he's got all the tools to do that. That being said, the run back with just Pringle is kind of inadequate, especially when you have a nice chunk of money left over. I might not want to go as expensive or as chalky as Tyreek Hill, but Travis Kelsey for a bit less than Tyreek Hill with the same ceiling and at a premium position that doesn't have much going for it on this slate. Travis Kelsey for me he's a logical choice.
Yeah, you've essentially talked me and the listeners into it at this point. Travis Kelsey at 6,500. Sub 7K just feels like stealing. Yes, Tyreek Hill also a value there, sitting right there at 7K. But as you mentioned, Travis Kelsey really just sets himself apart from any of other of these tight ends available on this slate. And we get a chance to use him as a true bring back there to our Joe Burrow builds with Pringle as well, who we're bringing along to get a little bit different from the field, but have essentially stacked our most of entire lineup around this early game. I love this build thus far, and I'm excited to see what pieces we can fill in with our 5,450 remaining for a wide receiver and a flex position. That's not bad. That's a value. Let's go down to our flex
so many ways. So many ways to bite this apple too, because
through that, Ayuk at 5, OBJ 51, McKinnon 51, Clyde Edwards-Helaire 53, T. Higgins 57.
Kittle in there 5K flat and double up your tight ends at the flex. You could do that, or you could go cheaper with your flex or your wide receiver and come back with a more expensive option. You could go with 2 $5,000 guys, or you can go with a 4 and a 6. So many ways to cut this up.
It really just
4 wide receivers.
Right, and there's no man's land right there between 5,900 and 7,000. So that really makes it interesting with what you pick for one. As we mentioned, we're not afraid to leave money on the table, but that is an $1,100 gap there, just above what we have remaining for each position. So just for reference, now we already have Kelsey in, but let me plug a a Deebo Samuel in at 7,200 because we do have Kelsey instead of a Tyreek Hill. That leaves us 3,700. Now we have a Deebo Samuel, a Kelsey, a Jamar Chase, a Mckinnon, and a Burrow. I mean, a lot of superstars feels like in that build, and leaving us a let's see here, 3,700 for a potential true flyer there at the position. There's not a ton of guys in that range. However, let me see. Go back to wide receiver. Plug Deebo in, and now at the flex. Yeah, so with that left, we have Tyler Higby at 37 does fit. So we are there now getting the double tight end exposure that you talked about. Higby, who actually has come on as of late, isn't a piece that I mind bringing along with the Cam Akers, Rams DSD. He's got the touchdown upside. I mean, I don't know. This kind of fell together nicely there as we plug that in. What do you think, Bo?
I think it makes me just queasy enough to think it'll work. You put Tyler Higby in there and it's like Ipecac. You just want to throw up, but it's exactly what you want. I mean, it's like sometimes you gotta taste a little vomit to win $1 million, and that's just the way it goes, because you have to have something unsavory there.
Now, obviously, Uzomah is right there at 3,400. If we wanted to really soak in the Joe Burrow potential, we have obviously Mixon and Chase there going for Burrow. Uzomah is on the table, and just, obviously 37, it seems like Higby's the no-brainer there, fits perfectly. Well, clicking on CJ Uzomah might be just the ticket that you need to, how many people are staring at this screen right here and clicking Uzomah over Higby right here? That's setting yourself apart. Or potentially Juan Jennings right here, 3,200, setting yourself apart once again. Now Deebo Samuel kind of taking away from our upside, but more or less just the conversation of finding ways to potentially get a little bit different. Yes, double tight end is different, but not only that, peel another layer back, double tight end, and avoid the top tight end that's staring you in the face, and go one below that with CJ Uzomah. Boom. It's all about fractions and pieces of the pie, and little moves like that can make your piece of pie become a little bit smaller and differentiate from the field.
I don't hate it, because looking at Run the Sims, the projection for Higby and Uzomah are almost identical. Higby is slightly more owned, but they're almost identical in optimal rate, in boom rate, and base projection. So take the guy that's less chalky in that situation, because it's a flex spot. It's a flex spot in the late window. If you're like, hey, I'd rather play Juwan Jennings, and you want to do the wild and crazy late swap, you have the salary to go and do that. If Uzomah's in your flex, you're not late swapping anything. But if you do go with Higby, you can switch to Juwan Jennings if you want. You can go down to a different receiver to fill in the rest of your lineup.
And that is part of the appeal that might give Higby a little bit more of the nod, because once again, then you get to take a look at how the rest of your build unfolded as far as percentages go across the given tournament. And if everything stays relatively low, maybe you stick with Higby. But if everything, you have one of your 25-30% guys just really kind of shit the bed, that might be a time that you need to pivot off of Higby and get to a Jennings, i.e. or someone else of that caliber who's probably going to see significantly lower percentage. But if Higby goes off and 20-30% of other people have Higby as well, that doesn't do anything for you. If Jennings goes off and 5% of people have Jennings, all of a sudden you found a way to maybe catch a little bit of win there as the second game unfolds. So just something to think about each and every time you are. Bo mentioned it. It's just our last flex position. No big deal, 3,700. But you do have options, and potentially having a guy from that later afternoon game does give you even more options. So something to think about when you are making these builds. All of these things matter. They matter, and the more lineup builds that you have, obviously the tougher it is to sit here and go through and find these things. But if you're like me or other people building these 2, 3, maybe 4 core lineups, having at least a couple where you have that at your disposal can pay dividends to you if one of the chalk pieces really falls short.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm looking at Jennings. Jennings only projected 6% ownership. And if you remember, week 18, and the Rams got off to a huge lead, and it was Jennings' 2 touchdowns that brought the 49ers back. And so it was Debo and Jennings in that situation that were the guys that got there for San Francisco. Because if I remember correctly, Elijah Mitchell kind of had a down game. They ran the ball with him 25 times, but he didn't get the touchdown. He didn't get the 100-yard bonus. So you have to be able to find the guy in your build that makes sense. And so if you have Jennings and Debo, you're saying, okay, I'm exploiting how they use Debo in the backfield, how they put him in motion and put him in space, give him the ball at all costs. And I like Jennings because he's a guy that can get deep. This Rams defense is pretty heavily favoring Jalen Ramsey and his expertise, but the other guys in the secondary can be got. And so Jawan Jennings is perfectly capable of being your upside late swap. As if you're going with Higby there and it doesn't pan out for you, you're going to need more upside to get there and above the cash line and for the late game.
Yeah, Bo, man, I like that line, man. It's not too different from other ones, my Joe Burrow builds that I do have in the works, but a little bit different. And I think it is something that it is going to take to really kind of set yourself apart in these large field tournaments. Before we get out of here, Bo, I do want to take a minute to shout out to a couple of people, including yourself here. But I want to make sure everybody is following Sons of Dynasty there on Twitter. That is at Dynasty Sons. A big shout out to Brother Matt, who is here with us tonight behind the scenes. He is the maker and producer here at SODFS, the fine maker of all these layovers that you have seen throughout the night, and the guy that is keeping Bo and myself in line each and every night here. So big shout out to Brother Matt. Make sure you follow him. You can find him on Twitter at Dynasty Dude. That is DY_nasty dude. And make sure you're also following True North FFB there on Twitter as well, and subscribe to the TNFF network here on YouTube. Big shout out to some of our partners here at SODFS, in Viridian Global, some of the finest apparel here in the FF industry. Big shout out to Surfshark, Run the Sims, and Trophy Smack, all proud partners here at SODFS. And reach out to us if those are in things that you might be interested in, and a promo code very well could end up in your DMs. Bo, I am a proud supporter there of Hotbox, everything Bo McBig Time that Flavor has to offer. I just recently received a package from you for winning a league that we did with Brother Matt here.
I swear to God,
one of the best
it hurt my heart
to be a part of this year. But I did get some of the spices, and they are more magnificent, the hot sauce, everything. Since you really came onto the scene, I love pushing products that I believe in, and your product is one that I truly do believe in, and boots on the ground have sent through the testing fields, man. Is there anything else besides that you want to shout out? I know you got another show tonight, man. Go ahead and hit the listeners with potentially a link where they can find that.
Website's under construction, so that doesn't work right now, but when it is up and running, bigtimeflavor.co will get you the official punch in the mouth of fantasy football, which is it's the hot box gourmet hot sauce. It's taco sizzin', it's Smoke Shack barbecue rub, Shelby Street Heat Nashville hot blend, and of course Amigo all-purpose blend, which is every food's best friend, making your mother-in-law's cooking tolerable since 2000.
I love it, man. It is just tier one. I really do appreciate you stepping up here tonight. When my regular co-host Nate couldn't make it, big shout out to him. When he couldn't make it, I reached out to you immediately, and you said, you know what, fuck it, I'm in. I normally don't like to swing the bar that low, but I'm feeling charitable. I'm feeling charitable here on Saturday night.
Hidden cameras, because those are the exact words that came out of my mouth. when you sent me the DM to invite me, I said,
anybody
"Fuck it,
that did tune in tonight, man, I really do appreciate it. Each and every week there's been guys like Bo and many others who stick with us here on SODFS throughout the season. It's been an absolute pleasure here all the way through the NFL playoffs each and every week, and we're going to continue to grow and get better through the offseason. Sons of Dynasty does have some video content that we're going to be producing a little bit more on the dynasty orientation, aspect of it. But SODFS will have potentially a few pods coming up. We're going to be dabbling in a little bit of NASCAR throughout the season. Nate is a huge NASCAR guy, so we're going to be dabbling with that a little bit, as well as potentially just getting into some overall DFS strategy talk. Maybe have some episodes with some special guests like potentially Bo, Scott, and a couple of our other here staple guys here on SODFS. So make sure you stay tuned for that and subscribe here to the TNFF network, so that way you will definitely be a part of it. Bo, I really do appreciate you coming on, man, and I hope we get to do it again soon.
Very soon. It's gotta be. I was just thinking about getting you back on Chalk Blocked, so check your DMs. I'll be sliding in, and so we can really make fun of Scott together.
Hey, man, that sounds like a party I could be in for. We really do appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Until next time, I am Dan, he is Bo, and we are signing off on SODFS.
SODFS is for entertainment only and to add value to your sports experience. We give you our advice and strategy that we will employ ourselves. SODFS is not intended for those under the age of 18.